eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.
What the hell is going on, everybody? Welcome to another live stream. We've got a pretty exciting show today. It's UFO land. We're looking at our favorite reality TV show. You know, it's not often that we, well, not anymore anyway. It's not as often that we sort of dive into the whole government side of disclosure because, quite frankly, I find it a little bit boring and repetitive. Kind of seems like a reality TV show that's being played out in real life. But, you know, there is still a slim part of me that holds on to hope. Maybe I'm naive, probably am. But either way, if you don't have hope, what do you have? You know what I'm saying? So today, the 4 new witnesses that have been announced to be testifying at the next UAP hearing, which is in 5 days, by the way, like this is soon. And what I thought I would do is we would take a look at them. So we'll basically just run through who they are, what we know about them so far, and kind of get your thoughts on it. I'll give you guys my thoughts, but I'm definitely keen to go back and forth tonight. Macca with $5 says, how did your team go tonight? Bro, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't watch sport. So I don't know what you're talking about at all. Nope. Thank you, though, bro. Appreciate the $5. Bruce, JL, Lammy, and Leetful all became members while the stream wasn't even started yet. So shout out to you guys. Absolute legends, and shout out to you as well, Macca, you cheeky little prick. All right, let's jump over here and let's delve into our favorite reality TV show, UFO disclosure. So this tweet came from the most suspiciously attractive woman in ufology. Anna Paulina Luna announced on September 3rd. So, well, I think we've known about this for a little bit longer, but this came out officially yesterday. Anna Paulina Luna announces hearing on transparency relating to unidentified anomalous phenomena. Washington Task Force on the Declassification of Federal Secrets chairwoman Anna Paulina Luna today announced a hearing, and this is the title of the hearing: Restoring Public Trust Through UAP Transparency and Whistleblower Protection. Now, UAP transparency and whistleblower protection both need a lot of work. It doesn't, from what we've heard from people like Michael Herrera, the whistleblowers are getting no protection, despite ever since the last UAP hearing, they set up the UAP Disclosure Fund to protect whistleblowers. I'm not sure how much money they've raised. I'm sure they've raised a bit. I don't know where that money's gone, who's been protected. Doesn't sound like anyone, but that's okay. We'll keep going. During the hearing, members will hear from witnesses on the continued concerns regarding disclosure of unidentified anomalous phenomena and information held by federal agencies, and will examine transparency issues surrounding the Department of Defense, because we know that it is somewhere deep in the Department of Defense that this is all locked away. And it's important to remember that, you know, it's not the Department of Defense as a whole. There's probably a lot of good people in there who want this stuff out just like we do. But I think it's departments and agencies and different levels that are probably obstructing the truth as well. So this is set for September 9th at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, I've seen a few people suggesting that I should live stream this. Like, you know, we can watch it like a watch along. We can watch it together and sort of talk about it as we go. I have a feeling that this is going to be at the most hellacious time for me possible. I haven't worked it out yet. If it's not, if it's doable, I'll do it. Providing there's going to be a stream with audio better than the last one. The one that I uploaded remastered videos of, because it was that bad. But if it's at a reasonable time, I will consider it. Dan Gardner's saying it's at midnight for us, Josh. That's doable. I can do midnight. Okay. We'll tentatively book that in, but I will confirm. I will confirm that. But if it's midnight, I think that's definitely doable, and that could be a lot of fun. The witnesses. Okay, the important part. This is what we want to know. First up is Jeffrey Nakatelli. I hope I'm saying that right, because if I'm pronouncing that wrong, I sound like a real idiot, but that's okay. I've sounded like an idiot many times on this channel. He is a US Air Force veteran and witness, and we're going to be hearing from him in a moment. Chief Alexandro Wiggins, another UAP witness, we'll also be hearing from him and his story. And the curveball, and I'm really excited to talk about this one, George Knap. I'm really excited. Well, I don't know. This is going to go either way, but we'll talk about it when we get to George Knap. And then we've also got Dylan Boland, who is listed here as a UAP witness and a US Air Force veteran. Now, Dylan Boland is the one that from what I can understand, we've not heard anything from at all. He's the guy on the thumbnail, though. That's about all we've got. And we've got a little bit more information on him, which we'll talk about when we get to it. But he's kind of like the Mike Gold of this hearing, okay? Just like complete rogue choice. No one really knows why he's there. However, I'm hoping we find out why. And I'm hoping we're happy with that reason. Because if it's anything like Mike Gold, it's probably going to be a terrible UAP hearing. And that's nothing personal about Mike Gold. I actually said he comes across like a really nice person. But he just didn't really add much to the hearing. Kind of just seemed like he wanted to get funding for NASA. So hopefully this lot are a little bit more impactful than the last one. And we're being promised that they will. We're being promised that this won't be a dog and pony show like the last one absolutely was. And I think we can all agree with that. The very first one with Fravor and Grush, that was big. The last one was a flop. Let's hope third time lucky we actually make some ground up, because people have said, Michael Herrera has said, David Grush and others have provided dates, names, locations, everything that they need has been given to them, but no action has been taken. So, when you hear that, it doesn't leave you with too much hope, but we'll see. Robert Matrano, you absolute legend. He's gifted a membership. Very generous of you, Robert. Thank you. Rusty, celebrating 2 months as a member, says midnight is good. Yes, sir, if you say so. And Macca has put in $40, Suki snacks, and a 6-pack. My man, I might need that 6-pack after that game of football that I absolutely did not watch, because obviously sports are fake and gay, and who would watch that? Am I right? No, I'm kidding. I watched one game of sports. I watched sports ball one time, and I can feel my pineal gland calcifying at a rapid rate. My pineal gland is being reduced to a mere stone after one game of sports ball. And Dan Garden celebrating 4 months as a member with the Polarity merch store link, which has been playing up, but I believe if you type it in exactly how my man Dan has, you will get there, and you will be able to get yourself some weirdo merch and show everyone that you're an absolute freak. Wear it with pride, I say. So that's that. I think with that being said, let's jump into the first witness testimony. So what we're going to do is we're basically just going to kind of play what we've got from these first two whistleblowers, and then we'll look at a couple of clips from George Knap and talk about him, and then we'll get into Dylan Boland at the end. So this is Jeff Nakatelli. Hopefully I'm saying that one right. And this is his UAP encounter, which I'm assuming is going to be, I'm hoping it's going to be the bare bones of his testimony. And we're actually going to get more. I'm hoping from all of these guys that we get more than we already know, right? More than what's already in the public eye. Hopefully. Here we go. Actually, we need some audio.
Happened. So the story is about 8:45 in the morning. The dispatcher gets a call from range control, a technical sergeant from range control. And he says, I'm reporting an event that occurred at LF-21 and LF-10, two different sites in the same location. And what he said was the contractors working on site called range control, and they said there was a gigantic floating red square over LF-21 at low altitude. And they were just standing there watching this thing.
A red square. So
red square.
one thing that people have asked me after I spoke about this case at the hearing was, what does that mean, a red square? Right? Was this a cube? Did it not look like it had depth, and so it's described as a square? I said square in the hearing because that's how it was described to me, just as you described it. And I'm curious if you have any additional details that you could add. Was it a three-dimensional object? Did it just appear to be a square, and it just couldn't be? You couldn't tell.
So here's the issue. I had the original statement from the contractors. There were 3 contractors that worked for Boeing that saw this object, and they wrote sworn written statements. I've lost those. I lost them in 2012. I have some other statements, but those are indirect witness statements from it. But from my recollection of reading the documents, to the best of my recollection, it was a somewhat flattened square plane, and basically just a big square object.
A square flattened plane. Like, this is that. I mean, to me, I imagine this as just kind of like, say, a flying saucer or a TR-3B, but in a square shape. Like that. Is that how people are kind of picturing this? This is just like, it's not a cube. It just sounds like a craft that's in the shape of a square. I don't know what the confusion is. I mean, it's odd in the fact that we don't really hear square often, but I'm not perceiving this as like a tile. It sounds like a craft in the shape of a square.
The size of a football field, silently floating over the launch pad.
Wow.
Red in color, glowing this red color. So as far as I know, it wasn't a cube. It was like a flattened square.
Got it.
So yeah, they start telling me.
But I mean, flattened square, and there's a big difference between flattened square and cube. One is 2D, one is 3D. What if it's like a rectangle, flattened rectangle?
The story, and as they're briefing me on the event, I find out that the flight chief and their senior patrolman, these are the people I'm talking to, they're briefing me. They responded out there. And it's about a 30-minute drive from...
Earlier in the day, they were the ones that responded.
So at 8:45, the call came in from range control. They said, the contractors say there's this gigantic floating red square over the launch facility. And the flight chief and the senior patrolman drove out to the facility, and they met the contractors. And they interviewed them. They took written statements, sworn written statements. When the patrolman went out there, they didn't see anything. So they reported in the blotter entry that they didn't.
You know what I think will be fun? I think at the end of the stream, okay, what we'll do is I'm going to give you my picks on who I think is going to be the most impactful witness testimony at the hearing. We're going to go 1 to 4, 1 being the most impactful, 4 being nothing. And what we'll do as well, we'll put it into a poll so you guys can vote. I think the poll system works that way. I think you can do multiple, maybe not. We'll work something out, and we'll do our top picks on who we think is going to bring the heat and who we think is going to flop.
Didn't see anything anomalous on the way out or when they were there. And then later, they brought in the technical sergeant from range control that called in the initial call, that received the complaint from the contractor saying there's this UFO. They brought that person in and had him write a written statement.
The hearing date is in 4 days, Haru. 9th of September, American time.
His written statement. And I also have the blotter entry. And the blotter entry, it's somewhat detailed. But it doesn't go into great detail about the description of the object. All that data was in the witness statements. You know.
Got it.
So, yeah.
So it sounds like this guy is not a first-hand witness. It felt like leading up to this, the whole point was they wanted first-hand witnesses, people who had touched craft, people who had seen bodies. That was really how this thing was getting played up. And I mean, I'm pretty sure George Knapp hasn't. Doesn't sound like this guy has either. I don't know. We'll keep listening for a little bit longer, but so far, I don't think this guy will be taking my top pick so far. John Anthony, you absolute legend, just gifted 5 memberships. I appreciate that, brother. Huge support. And if you guys were lucky enough to get one of those, make sure you say thank you. And check out all the members-only content as well. Appreciate you, John. Legend.
Yeah, and that's basically what happened that morning. I came in, they're telling me this crazy story. They responded out, took the statements. And I'm just like, okay, this is crazy. You know, I was like completely like excited about the event because it was real. I'm like, this is not a joke. These are not, you know, these are contractors with top secret clearances, not playing a prank. You had a police
Wouldn't it be
response.
usual to see, like, you know, contractors who, my assumption is that they're not constantly on this base. They're probably there for some task or activity that is limited in nature.
Those guys were probably contractors that were.
Doctor says they keep moving the bar as to what firsthand means. Do they? I think firsthand means firsthand. I don't know how that can sort of be confused. Like, to me, firsthand is like you saw it with your eyeballs or you touched it with your hands. To me, I think you can't confuse firsthand. I don't know if people have been saying firsthand means something else in the UFO space that I've missed, but I think firsthand is firsthand. I don't know. Have I missed some things, or does anyone else disagree with that? Where do we get? There we go. Vern Dude, throwing in a gifted. My man, Vern Dude. Thank you very much, brother. Whoever got that. Welcome to the weirdest corner of the internet. Check out the members-only content as well. Got a few thirsty people for Anna Paulina Luna in the chat. That's standard. Whenever you say her name, tongues begin wagging and saliva begins to drool. I agree with you entirely. I've seen Corbell explaining what they consider to be firsthand on some interviews, and he was all over the place with it. Yeah, Corbell, I don't know about Corbell. Don't know. Can't tell. I really can't tell. Can't tell what's going on with him. It's hard to read through his excitement. His excitement is just so strong and radiating that it's hard to gauge, like, what are your actual normal thoughts? When you're not excited, like, what are you thinking? What are your motives? When you're that excited, it's kind of hard to get a read on you. You just seem excited all the time. And that in itself is a bit strange. Let's be honest. Jeff witnessed and investigated the Vandenberg incursions. I believe he's firsthand, but I agree it's shaky to have him as the firsthand testimony. But, so Dan, you're saying this guy saw it himself. It doesn't sound like it by the way he's explaining it, but I could be wrong. This guy was on, I think he was on another podcast. Again, I tend to tune out a little bit when it comes to the whole government disclosure, at least lately, because it just feels like it's going in circles. So it feels like a waste of time. Not a waste of time in that it's never going to go anywhere, but a waste of time to like hang off of every word and every new story that comes out, because it generally, like literally 9.5 times out of 10, doesn't change anything. So I sort of like follow this thing from like one step away and take that step in when it feels like, okay, we might actually have something here. Otherwise, I feel like you're just chasing the white rabbit. And I'm too like impatient for that. I get annoyed when I feel like I'm going in circles. All right, I think that's enough from Jeff Nakatelli. Not a big pick for me. Probably probably sitting at like a 2 or 3 right now, but it's early. We have Captain Alexandro Wiggins. Now this guy, and again, you guys in the chat probably know more than me, so you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe that this is the guy who saw and filmed the radar footage or the heat signature footage of the recent Tic Tac video. So the one that came out of Jeremy Corbell that I did a video about, kind of saying how shit it was. Kind of saying how this new video that he brought out, that he was all excited about, as he always is, looks exactly the same as the Tic Tac video from 2017. And that it was kind of weird that we were pretending to be excited about it because it's like literally nothing new. I think this is the guy that brought those to light. Rambo's saying, yes, he saw 4 Tic Tacs. 2 of them saw Tic Tacs. Yeah, so this is all about the Tic Tac. Absolutely. So let's take a listen to Alexandro Wiggins here.
Yeah. So take us back to this night in February of 2023. What's going on? Where are you? How does this first come to your attention?
So that night, it was an evening into the night watch. We were standing and...
Excuse me?
Typical day, underway, conducting normal operations off the coast of San Diego. And there was a time that I witnessed on my radar a few contacts popping up. It was northeast on the contact on the radar. The radar's in true, so northeast-ish, looking at the radar and noticed a few things come in and out. You know, I've been in the Navy for 23 years, so as an operations specialist, so I know the difference between, you know, helicopters, which I'm a helo controller myself.
Creepy says, I thought the Tic Tacs were a government-made thing. I think they are.
With an NEC of helo control, and knowing the difference between that, commercial navigation radars, which are your typical ComNav that are, you know, going to Hawaii possibly, and then atmospherics, so things like clouds, rainstorms, things like that. You learn over, you know, the years to differentiate what's what on your radar. So that night, I noticed that I couldn't differentiate what was what at all amongst the things that I just mentioned. So
Kat says, yeah, nah, at this point, George is looking like our best hope. I think you could be right, Kat. First discovered George Knapp back in the late 80s, James. Yeah, I mean, George Knapp has got to be one of the dudes, like, carrying the flag since early. And I think a lot of people feel that way. And a lot of people really respect George Knapp and like his work, including me. And that's why I'm actually most excited to talk about George Knapp in this video. But the fact that he does spend so much time with Jeremy Corbell does feel a little bit odd. And again, it's nothing personal about Jeremy. It's just like their styles don't really seem like the kind of team you would expect. Like they're the weirdest Batman and Robin you've ever seen. Their Batman and Robin dynamic is like stepdad with like really weird eccentric stepson. And stepdad doesn't actually have a blood relation, so he's like legally allowed to be kind of like, fuck, this kid is weird. You know what I mean? Like, he kind of like has to look after him, but he still has that one, there's no blood there, so he can be like, fuck, this guy is weird. But they still stay together. It's just odd.
So I decided to go out into the bridge wing just to take a look, to see. I didn't think it was that far away. I think, you know, it's nighttime, so light travels. So I figured, you know what, let me just poke outside, see what I can see.
Batman and SpongeBob, I like it.
And to my surprise, which is something I've never witnessed, was a light I noticed on the horizon, but it looked as if it were surfacing out of the water and going up. Now, seeing lights on the horizon, very typical when you're out in the water, but seeing a light on the horizon going into the air is a different story. So witnessing that, I'm not sure of what I'm seeing. What goes through my head, maybe there's you know, a military team that's out there conducting flight operations, and maybe their helos hovering, something like this, you know, but their lights blink. I'm a helo controller, so I know that their lights, their running lights are going to be blinking, red, green, and, you know, pulsating. So it's like it's going to be a solid light, and that's what I witnessed, was a solid light rising from the horizon up. So went back inside, looked at my radar to just kind of match what I'm seeing with my own eyes, and I didn't really see what I thought I was going to see. I only saw one light visually, but then I saw 4 different contacts on radar. So seeing those 4 contacts on radar, I asked our CSM, I forget what that stands for right now, but Combat Systems, I forget the full title, but asked the CSM to take a look on Sapphire. They're in charge of managing Sapphire and moving it around to just look at surface and air contacts around our ship. So they slew over to the location that I gave them, the direction in which I gave them. And that's where you see the video cut into play, where you see it slew into that target to kind of look at it. And, you know, they're the operator, so they know how to zoom in and kind of see what the profile of the contact that we're looking at to kind of understand.
The Wrath of Khan even says, at this point, unless it's someone who worked at S4, I don't want it. And yeah, I have to agree with you. This is what I'm saying. I mean, we're only halfway there with looking at these witnesses, but these are the main 2 that are sort of in the public already with their story. If these guys aren't bringing more than we already know to the table, it's going to be very frustrating and disappointing. And, you know, like what this guy is saying, and, you know, he hasn't finished yet, but, you know, he saw a Tic Tac. In fact, we've got the video, so this is the video from when... This is the video that got released when I'm so bad at talking and doing this stuff. It's just it's horrendous. This is the video that got released accompanying this story. So I can only assume it came through this guy here. And obviously this video is pretty underwhelming, right? It's just...
That shit took off earlier.
Another video... I'm sorry, was that playing sound for you guys? My apologies. That's my apologies. That's completely my bad. Sorry. I couldn't hear a thing. If that was not playing through my ears, I had no idea. I'm glad I saw that. My apologies. I was talking shit the whole time anyway, so you didn't miss anything. This video is the one that came out with this guy's testimony, okay? And as you can see, it's pretty underwhelming. It looks exactly like the one in 2017. So unless these guys are bringing more to the table than this story, this, and I'm talking about the person we just looked at as well, Jeff, this is already going to be, I think, an underwhelming hearing. And I don't want to be negative. I really don't. I want it to be good. But these guys need to bring more than this, because in the very first hearing, not even the last one, the first one, Commander David Fravor gave an essentially identical testimony to what this guy can give. I saw a Tic Tac on radar. Heard it in 2023, bro. Already heard it. It's nearly 3 years later. Give us something better, please. Please. Tap with 30 SGD. Now, Tap. Thank you, brother. Very generous of you. How do I say the rest of your name? Because you've used what looks like ancient Greek letters, and I can't read ancient Greek. In fact, I can barely read English. So if you could let me know how I actually say your name, that would be fantastic, so I don't feel rude when I respond to you. And is that Singaporean dollars, SGD? What does that stand for? Let me know, brother. And thank you very much for the super chat. Jay Giddo, welcome, you little freak. Make sure you go check out the members only content. Thank you for the support. And Maximus with $15 says they are all the same. One whistleblower after another. Cool stories, but not a shred of evidence. It's as frustrating as it is interesting. Your channel is awesome, Josh. Keep it up, bro. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate the generosity, and it's, you know, it's nice to hear that other people are on the same vibe as me, because don't get me wrong, like in the earlier days of the channel, when I started doing this, obviously, you know, I've been interested in the UFO story for nearly 2 decades, literally nearly 2 decades. It's a long ass time. And when I started this channel, you know, I was far more bright-eyed than I am now about the topic. And I'm still just as interested in it, But I feel like when you really get into the reads of it, you begin to see it for what it is. At least I do anyway. And I feel like sometimes people get upset when I, criticize the hearings or have no confidence in the people testifying or say that Anna Paulina Luna is a CIA honeypot, which was a joke, but she is very conveniently attractive, heading the task force of the most covered up topic in history. Let's just not forget that. That is a good data point. I'm not saying she is, but it's a pretty interesting data point. I like her, though. I like her. But I'm sure that's the point, right? That's the plan. So I like to just call it how it is. And sometimes it's not positive, but believe me when I say I want disclosure just as much as all of you. I really do. I just don't like it when I get led up the garden path. Because by now, like you guys are saying in the chat, like Dan Gardner is saying, in fact, Dan, subpoena the engineers. If you go back, actually, I might have even deleted it off my channel because it was a horrific video. It might still be there. I did like I did a watch along for the last hearing. With, probably has like 20 views. And at the end of that, I'm pretty sure I said exactly, I said the hearing was underwhelming, but I also said that if at this next hearing, we are not having like the CEO of Lockheed Martin subpoenaed in, or these like high-level dudes in the military-industrial complex running these programs, if these people aren't being subpoenaed, what is the point? What is the point? Like or the people who retrieved the craft, worked on the crash retrieval, or were pulling the little bodies out of the craft at Roswell. Okay, maybe not Roswell, it's too long ago, but you know what I'm saying, right? If we're not getting people with hands on, what's the point? What I'm short circuiting. How much further can a guy who saw a tic tac on a radar take us? Is what I was trying to say. You know what I'm saying?
Dan, okay, if it were a ComNav radar, which is a typical, airliner, 747, then we're going to say, okay, good to go. They're, headed off to Hawaii or wherever, anywhere to the west. But that night, we didn't witness that as shown by the video.
So the
people are saying, Susan Davis says, remember this, Josh, they don't have protection coming forth. People will disappear. I know, and that is what that's what Michael Herrera spoke about recently, and I do understand that. I do understand that these people need to be protected, but this is what I don't understand, right? And I know there's like loopholes and laws around it, but when the government, okay, here we go. When the government is trying to find answers on people who have committed crimes, and then the government realizes that they can't protect the witnesses coming forward to tell the government what the government wants to know, that means you're not really the government. If you think you're the government and you're telling people to come and testify in front of you, but they're not coming because they're scared for their life of going to prison, then what are you? You're obviously not the government. Really. You might think you are. You might look like it on the outside to everyone else. But if you can't stop people you're trying to extract answers from for going to prison for that, what actually are you? You're a facade. I just answered it for everyone. You're a facade. Aiden Smith, you little freak. Thank you, Aiden, for the support. Go and check out the members only content, my man. I appreciate that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's very frustrating. And I know that there is like, you can get taken to court or put in prison by the military. They're separate to the government. I know, but it's like, fix that immediately. Like, and I know this shit is easier said than done, 100%. But like, don't do a hearing then. Don't do a hearing. Get your ducks in order and tick things off in the correct order. Make sure people are safe. If you really want this fixed, organize witness protection, heavily guarded. When they come in and testify, take them to protection and protect them. Spend lots of money on protecting them because this could potentially change the world. This is important. But Josh, most people do not want the government to have more power. Well, enjoy your dog and pony shows then. And like, enjoy your dog and pony shows, because that's what like, someone needs more power, obviously, right? Because this current structure isn't working. Aiden Smith has also put in $20. Didn't leave a message, but Aiden, my man, I appreciate that, man. Super generous of you, and make sure you join the Discord as well. The members chat is absolutely popping off lately. All right, let's finish up hearing from Alexandro here, and then we'll move on to George Knapp.
The sensor is pointed toward land, sort of a northeastern direction. Is that what you're pointed at? You're looking at?
Yes. So it's pointed towards a northeast direction at the time, based on what that video shows in Sapphire. So we were fairly far away from the coast of San Diego, San Clemente area. So it definitely was not, lights on the horizon from the city, nor did I have anything as far as helicopters or air traffic that I was detecting at all in that location.
Yeah.
That sounds like it could be near like Catalina Island, which is a big hotspot for this stuff.
Let me drive something home here. So, I mean, you are, from our conversations, I know, like a tactical air controller. You spend your time knowing the flight routes, 360, what's around you. These were outside of all of those zones. And I think it's important to kind of explain that. But also, look, your words, they're going to be twisted. You said to me, we've talked about this, you said the word horizon a few times, but I want you to get really clear. Did you see one of these craft come up out of the water or not out of the water?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when I say that I saw this craft come out of the water, it's nighttime. So I want to be clear when I say what I saw a light, and it was a decently bright light. So when you've been on the water as long as I have, you know the difference between an aircraft carrier's lights, a difference between an oiler's lights, a fishing, a cargo ship. It's what we learn when we freshly come into the Navy, especially as an operations specialist. We have to learn silhouettes. We have to learn lighting structures, things of that nature. It's just part of what our job is.
Okay, so we get it. The guy knows the difference between a plane and a Tic Tac, and you would hope so because he's in the military. Look, again, I do find these kind of guys a little bit boring, if I'm honest. I don't know if I'm alone there. Apologies if you're enjoying that. But honestly, like, we're just so far down the road. Like, I just need more than this. Like, my dopamine receptors are absolutely fried and so desensitized to Tic Tac thermal imaging videos and vague, distorted, grainy, black and white videos. That is not hitting the dopamine receptors hard anymore. I need more than that, okay? I need far more than that. James Anthony says private aerospace companies employ assassination squads. Yeah, and we've heard a lot about that, these like blue on blue fights. And what I find interesting about that, actually, let's get rid of him for now. And let's get up the big dog, the big G Knap. We'll get into him soon. What I find interesting about that is these aerospace companies hiring assassination squads to essentially kill or use whatever force necessary to obtain the craft or the retrieval or whatever it is. When we hear that, a lot of us are straight away think, oh my God, that's messed up. Why are they doing that? Why are they doing that? But like, actually think, what could be so important that these aerospace companies are hiring elite American men and maybe women and giving an all clear, which they don't have the legal right to do, by the way, to kill other American men and women to ensure that they, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Northrop, whatever, get the craft or get the gift, the donation, whatever the hell term you want to use. What could be so critical that an aerospace company is willing to allow their own countrymen to kill their own countrymen. That's messed up. That is really messed up. And look, just throwing this in here to maintain balance. We've never seen proof of that. We've been told that. We've been told a lot of things. That could be part of the confusion. That could be part of the Psy-Op. And, I hope it is. Because that's scary. Not in the sense of I'm sitting here shivering, biting my nails, scary. But scary in a sense of like, what could force a man or a company to do that? And, I think I think the indoctrination in the military is pretty crazy. And when I say indoctrination, I mean like brainwashing, right? I mean, just go back to the S4 series that we did with Connor O'Ryan, the whistleblower. And, again, whether you believe him or not, I don't know. But, he said a lot of things that corroborate things that Bob Lazar had said about S4 and the facility there. And he said that working as a guard at S4, you don't even have a name. Well, you're not allowed to use his name. You have no names on your camos. You're just a number. You're literally just a number. And you're not allowed to talk to anyone. And they're okay with that. Like, you have to relinquish so much of your humanity to get to these levels in the military where you would be assigned a job like, hey, go and pick up this UFO, and if anyone comes, kill them. If are they American? Kill them. Yes, sir. You're brainwashed. Hey, go kill another American so I can get this secret alien technology. Yes, sir. Brainwashed. Oh, I've missed a few here. Okay. Bronny with $5 says Stephen Greer is a reptilian. Carry on. Great show. Thank you, sir. I'll take that. I'll take that. ADX celebrating 1 month as a member. My man, shout out to you. Jay Giddo with a $5. Love your vids, brother. All we can do is hope that we get full disclosure. But even if they do, who will believe them? I think that's a great point as well, man. That is a great point. Like, the Psy-Op is so strong at this point that, like, they could come out and tell us the truth and we'll be like, yeah, okay, fucking Psy-Op. More Lou Elizondo disinformation. Meanwhile, it could, like, literally be the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And people would be like, yeah, you fucking fraud. You're probably friends with Epstein. But it's actually the truth. ADX has gifted a membership. I'm not sure if I said that one already. Shout out to you. Also, someone else joined as a member, but their name is gone. Shout out to you as well, you elusive little man. And ADX put in $5 and said, Vault 7 CIA WikiLeaks, go digging. Oh, okay. My man's just thrown a little grenade into the chat and left. I like it. Go your hardest. And Doctor has become a member. Welcome, sir. Appreciate you. I think most of us in this chat could probably use a doctor right about now. Make sure you go check out the members-only content. Thank you very much, sir. All right, let's get into who I'm most excited to talk about, which is George Knapp. George Knapp, doing this thing since the 80s. Probably one of the main flag bearers. When I read that George Knapp was going to be testifying, my initial reaction was, fuck. It's going to be another one of these. Like, my initial reaction was like, he's the Schellenberger. He's the Schellenberger, because it's like, hey, like we were saying, when I think UFO hearing, or when I think next UFO hearing after the last two, I'm thinking CEO of Lockheed Martin, the person running advanced aircraft division at Boeing. I'm thinking the guy who pulled a body out of a UFO in Peru in 1997. I'm thinking the guy who packed up the crash wreckage and put it on a truck to take back to S4 and work on it. That's what I'm interested in. That's what I want to know. So when I heard, we've got a journalist, I was like, for fuck's sake. Ah, shit. Here we go again. I think this is where you have it slightly wrong, Josh. People in the service weren't just brothers in arms. They was a lot of bad business against the servicemen for numerous smaller reasons. I don't know if I've got it wrong, because what you've said there, I don't really know if I've sort of said that. Maybe you've misinterpreted me, or maybe I'm misinterpreting you, because there was a few grammatical errors in that message, which have made it perhaps a little bit lost in translation. But I respect it either way, Rich. I do respect it. Josh, you need to do a video on Amy Eskridge. Her dad was all in the secret tech in Alabama. Yes, and the Space Force has just been moved to Alabama as well, which is interesting. It's very interesting. But let's get back to George Knapp. I hope he's not going to just be a Schellenberger. If George Knapp rolls in and kind of goes like, yeah, so I did this report in like the 90s. It was pretty good. I don't know if you guys saw it, but it says that this guy, he saw a UFO, and there was also this crash retrieval that I got told about, but I can't tell you who told me that one unless we are in a private setting or a skiff. If we get that, that will suck. However, George Knapp has said some pretty interesting things over the time. And he's also done some very interesting things, like gone to Russia and spoken to them about their UFO program. And like all journalists, they know a lot more than they say publicly. So I do have hope, partly because I'm a naive fool that is into the UFO topic, but also because I believe in George Knapp. I believe in George Knapp. So after this hearing, I'm either going to be even harder on Team Knapp, or I'm going to say he's just another Michael Schellenberger. And I don't want to say that. But let's take a listen to this clip of George Knapp on Joe Rogan talking about what our potential role as human beings could be on this planet and in the greater cosmos with other intelligences that may be here. And just before we do, Bronny with $2 says, I'm also tired of grainy footage. Bring on the 4K. Yes, please. Where is the full HD 4K color alien orgy that we're all waiting to see?
You know, different scenarios you could explore. For example, you ask, what could be so terrible that they can't tell us about it? Let's say these aliens, wherever they're from, made us, that we're a genetic experiment, that they created our religions, our religious figures, that we are an agricultural product, that somehow they harvest us, that our time is limited, that once the experiment's over, poof, we go away. I remember when there was a push back to have a designer universe, intelligent design universe in the schools, and I wrote a column about it, just said, hey, be careful what you wish for, because you might find out that the intelligent designer isn't God that you're thinking of. It might be some alien science project or something like that.
That's interesting. That's a very interesting point. We're gonna go into that. Marinda says he could do up another button. Marinda, I would argue that he could undo another one personally, but that's just me. We all have our own taste. It's interesting that he's saying that, like, what we perceive as God, which obviously is completely subjective, right? But I think what he's saying is that this higher form of intelligence that seems to be interacting with us or manipulating us in some way, it's easy for us to sort of look at that and think that's the creator. That is God. That is whatever is messing with us. It's that. But what if there is a hierarchy of beings and just above us is some other form of intelligence that is wildly advanced, far more ahead in every single way, and has been using us as some kind of, who knows, a crop, harvesting. I mean, what are cattle mutilations? Harvesting organs. I mean, like that's really dark, obviously, but it could be something like that. Why do children go missing everywhere all the time that apparently never get found? Okay, no, I was going to go into the elite pedophile rant, but I've done that a bit recently. I'll hold off. It gets me worked up. I'll hold off the elite pedophile stuff for the moment. But what if that this intelligence that is here, playing with our minds, is actually just the rung above us, but it's still not the creator. We're just at its whim, at its will. The same way, you know, dogs and cats exist here on this planet, but they are sort of, you know, at our, like we control the kind of life they have, essentially.
You know, you can imagine a lot of different things that would be really disturbing to people to come out. I don't know if that's the reason for the secrecy. I suspect it has a lot more to do with national security, us not wanting Russians and Chinese to know how far down the road we are.
We know that to be true.
We've been told that you can't tell your friends without telling your enemies.
It's probably a multi-layered reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't know the top layer. It's killing me.
Well, it's interesting because
Jeremy Corbell just said, I just don't know the top layer. That kind of implies that he thinks he knows a few layers up. That's how I heard that he kind of thinks he knows a few layers, but maybe not the very, very top. That's interesting. It could just be him thinking he knows more than he actually does, but maybe he does. I don't know. But the idea that I really do think that we need to come to terms with the fact that we are just not the biggest kid on the playground, essentially. There is something else here that is far. And this is what Jake Barber said in the recent podcast with Dennis Asberg. He said, at one point in time, humans understood and were, you know, at peace with the fact that they were kind of in danger at all times to mountain lions and bears and shit like that could snatch you or attack you and your family at any point. And that was just life. That's what you have to get used to. Has this been kept secret because they think like the fact that they can't protect us from something relinquishes their control or their respect? Because let me be clear, your respect was gone a long time ago. Your respect went probably for most people in COVID, but like for most other people, like probably 9/11-ish. I would say that was probably the point the respect was gone. So don't worry about that. Don't worry about respect because that's gone. Odin with $2. I believe they are time travelers from long ago. It's interesting, Odin. That's exactly what Philip Corso's son believes. In the interview that we looked at with him, he was speaking about time and that, you know, that the future and the past kind of all coexist, but it's not like a linear thing. It's like existing side by side. Tom DeLonge talks about this. These are obviously super foreign concepts and sort of tough to wrap your head around. You can sort of barely picture it and begin to like grasp it with your fingertips, but these are themes that we hear, and I'm open to it. I'm absolutely open to the idea of it being something to do with time. If you were to believe the Nazi UFO conspiracy lore, Die Glocke was a time machine. That's what they believe it was. If you're to believe that, which I do.
how would they know the top layer? I mean, what kind of confirmation would you have to have that we were genetically engineered? Like how?
Oh, I know. Ask someone if they have any coherent thoughts in their brain, because apparently some people don't. Or just look at Peter Thiel and Mark Zuckerberg talk, and you'll realize the difference between androids and normal humans.
How much data would you have to have before you accepted that?
So you got compartmentalization, you said, right? So, but there are other types. There are other people that are like
All right, Jeremy, this isn't your hearing, mate. This isn't your hearing. We've got another Knap video to look at here. Here he is. Okay, we'll get to that in a moment. Tokyo Toy Bunzai says Philip K. Dick wrote a lot about that. And I love when this happens, and it seems to happen all the time. We are actually going to be... So this was actually going to be today's show. We were going to be looking at a Philip Dick interview in today's show. But then the hearing stuff came out, and I thought, okay, we'll go watch reality TV for a night. We'll talk about, the latest gossip in reality TV world. And then we'll do Philip Dick tomorrow. So look forward to that. Really fascinating interview, and I'm excited for that one. Ryan says JFK was our last hope. They made an example out of him, and ever since the government became a broken away society within a broken away society. Yep. Fantastic comment, Ryan. And I do think there is so many layers to this in the terms of like the compartmentalization. I don't think this is just like one broken away entity. I think, yeah, there is just so many layers on it and it's so complicated. And, you know, I think that is why there is that's a big reason as to why this is taking so long and it feels like it's going nowhere. And it's so easy to lose trust in the people who are in the government. But I will say, Anna Paulina Luna did come out with a really interesting quote that I put on my X account, actually. Maybe we can take a look at this quickly. Let's take a look at this. Who is this idiot? Okay, where are we? Okay, let's just look at this while we're here, because who doesn't love to laugh at Stephen Greer? Astral, where is he? Astral posted this saying, Greer when he heard George Knapp was a witness for the UAP hearing and not him. Greer is obviously in the intro flipping the bird when he was on Jesse Michaels and told everyone to sit on it and rotate. You know, that's probably the most iconic moment we've had in UFO lore this year, as far as, you know, any breakthroughs go. But here he is again, flipping the bird. Clearly a fan of the middle finger, Mr. Greer. I don't know what episode this is from. I've never seen him flipping the bird other than the Jesse Michaels episode, but clearly enjoys a middle finger. Clearly. Here's me ripping on people with small pineal glands. Standard stuff recently. Okay, here we go. Let's take a listen to this. Very interesting.
It's bigger than I think anyone anticipated. We are obviously going to be requesting the SARS reports from Treasury, and also too following up on that. There's some very rich and powerful people that need to go to jail. I think everyone's been frustrated as to why that hasn't happened before.
There's some very rich and powerful people that need to go to jail. Continue.
But it is very much so a possibility that Jeffrey Epstein was an intelligence asset working for our adversaries.
Adversaries. It's very likely possible that Jeffrey Epstein was an intelligence asset working for our adversaries. Now, look, I don't think we need to pull out the Britannica Encyclopedia to work out where Jeffrey Epstein came from. He certainly wasn't working for China or Iran or Russia, okay? He was working for Israel. I think that's quite clear. And she has just said it's quite clear he was working for our adversaries. Now, is Luna maybe suggesting that Israel are their adversaries because they seem to consistently drag them into every conflict and war that they have? Because that seems pretty adversarial to me. That's just my opinion, though. But I thought that was very strange of her to... She doesn't say Israel specifically, but you don't need to pull out the Britannica Encyclopedia to realize who Jeffrey Epstein was working for. So that's just a very interesting little data point that I thought we should weave into the show here. Bruce with $20 says the human experiment is ending. Try to tell that to the general public. Bruce, I think... No, I don't think we have the clip for that. Yeah. Imagine. If that is true, yeah. How do you tell them that? How do you tell them that? Because, you know, okay, let's just say that is disclosure. Let's just say disclosure is finding out that literally the truth is the Elohim or the creators are coming back and they're about to wipe the slate clean and they're going to start version 9. Okay, we're going to go back to stone. They're going to do version 9 of their new genetic experiment. We're all finished. Reset, wipe the board. That's just what happens every couple of thousand years. Welcome to the truth. If that's the truth, I think a lot of people are like, I'd still want to know it. I'd still want to know it. And fair enough. But you cannot deny that the world would descend into chaos. You might not, but I guarantee you an overwhelming majority will start destroying, looting, plundering, doing whatever the fuck they want because who cares? We're all going to die. Literally. I wouldn't. Although I feel like if that started happening, you would be forced to, if everything's getting stolen from the shops and no one's behaving in an orderly manner, what are you going to do? While Woolies is on fire and people are just plundering everything, what are you going to do? Walk in with your trolley and say, excuse me, I was going to buy that? No, bro, you're going to have to start stealing and you're going to have to start pushing and you're going to have to get violent to survive. That's literally what would happen if that is the truth that came out. There's no other way about it. Sorry. You're going to have to turn into a savage. And maybe that's why they don't want to tell you. MIB says, stop generalizing. Nothing wrong with liking sports. Relax, bro. I like sports. It's just fun to take the piss out of it sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Just relax, dude. Just lighten up a little bit. It's all good. I don't have any issue with sports ball. If you want to watch 20 dudes in tight shorts go chase a sack of air, you do that, bro. I don't care. You do that. Sometimes I like to do that too. I'm all for a bit of sports ball. I really am. Lynn, celebrating 3 months as a member. Can't stop think that use of blackmail is done in such an extreme way. They control every single country. Elite pedo rituals sound more and more plausible. Lynn, in future, please don't shorten your words like that. It makes it very difficult for me to read live on stream, but I agree with everything that you said. And that is where I feel like this all traces back. I think the control structures around the UFO problem are the same control structures in everything in society, right up to the very top. And I think the reason why we are not given this free energy technology, the reason why we are not given information about certain things is because that knowledge creates the power structure. If you knew how to do those things, you would move up. And they don't want you there. They want you down here because that's how the balance remains intact. And they stay at the top and you stay down here. Knowledge is power. Like, knowledge is literally everything. It really is. Guys, if you're enjoying the stream so far, please chuck a like on it. It's free, it takes 2 seconds, and it actually really helps the channel. So please go and do that while we listen to George Knapp. Tell us about his time in Russia. And if something is going to come out about George Knapp in this hearing, I would love to know what he found out in Russia.
Well, the Soviet Union, it occurred to me that maybe we might be able to learn more from the Russians about what our government knows about UFOs than our government will ever tell us. And I met a Russian physicist who was here in the U.S. to lecture on disarmament issues at national labs. He was getting ready to go back to Russia. He had been the national security advisor to Boris Yeltsin. He was the national security advisor to the Russian parliament. He had taught Russian cosmonauts how to spot American nuclear submarines from space. He was connected. So I had a beer with him at the suggestion of a U.S. congressman. And I said, hey, Nikolai, you ever hear any of your guys in Russia at high levels talk about UFOs? No, can't really think that doesn't ring a bell. We have another beer. And he says, you know, I do have a guy at the KGB who told me that they had looked into it for a while. And I thought, well, the KGB had just released its Oswald.
It's funny how people always remember a few more important things after a beer or two. Very odd.
Files. I thought maybe this is a golden opportunity to find out what they know. Because they are a superpower, they have nuclear weapons, they would have seen the same things we've been seeing. So I went to Russia. We sent Nikolai over back to Moscow, gave him a stipend, and his instructions were find people who are in a position to know, high up in the military or the government, who have never talked about this before. And it took about 8 months for him to report back and get all these people lined up. And then I went to Russia and met him and interviewed him. And these were former military guys. There was a guy named Colonel Boris Sokolov who was a gold mine of information. He told us about a previously unknown study, probably the biggest UFO study in the history of the world. For 10 years, from 78 to 88, the Russian military empire, every military unit in Russia, in their whole military, global, if they saw any ball of light, anomalous aircraft, UFO, anything weird like that, they had to report it to the KGB, and then all that information went to one desk at the Ministry of Defense.
Okay, so we've just heard that for 10 years in the 80s, Russia had a rule in their military. Anyone saw anything anomalous, report it. America, at the same time, and probably Australia too, actually definitely Australia too, and England, the West. The West. If you see something anomalous, you better shut the fuck up or you're going to lose your pilot license. If you see something anomalous, I wouldn't talk about that, bro. I wouldn't talk about that. They'll put you in a mental health home. So, who do you think's got more information on UAPs? The people who made you out to be a crazy person and ruined your life for merely mentioning that you saw it? Or the ones who were like, hey, that sounds important. You should tell us about it. I'm going to say probably the Russians.
Colonel Sokolov was that desk, and they had thousands of reports that had never been made public before. He told me about 45 different incidents where Russian warplanes had chased UFOs, couldn't catch them. 3 of the instances, these UFOs shot them down. 2 of those pilots died. And after that, he said, the order went out, look, if you see these things, don't mess with them. He said their study was for a very practical reason. These craft could do things that the Russians could not. And they wanted to get an advantage over the Americans in terms of stealth technology. So they
People saying Americans probably already had enough information on it. That's arrogance. That is such arrogance. And I don't mean you, Daniel, or anyone else who said that. I mean, if that is true, and I wouldn't put it past them either. I wouldn't put it past them to think we already know enough about this. We're going to literally ruin people's lives and careers who try to even mention it now. We already know enough about this. If you knew enough about this 60, 70 years later, why the fuck haven't you told anyone? Why haven't you told anyone anything about it then? Because from what we hear, you're all still trying to figure it out. That's why disclosure is so hard, because it's just such a mind-bending phenomenon. It's all about consciousness, and we're still studying it. We don't know how they pilot this craft with their consciousness. We're still studying it. But if you've got any information, don't you tell us about it or we'll ruin your life. And this is what Bob Lazar said. Science can't work in a vacuum. You're never going to get anywhere when you can't talk to anyone about it. It doesn't work like that. Ego gets in the way.
They wanted to do what people in reverse engineering programs are doing, figure out how the UFOs work so they could have an advantage over us. I had to smuggle some of these documents back. If I had been caught with this stuff, because some of it was classified, if I'd been caught, I'd still be in a gulag somewhere. But I got it back.
So George Knapp smuggled Russian classified documents out of Russia. Like, this is in the 90s. You know, like, can you go to prison for that? Like, we already know this story. But, like, do the Russians want to put George Knapp in prison? Do they care? Like, this is it's kind of weird that this is like an open secret, that he's like, yeah, I smuggled classified documents out of Russia. Yeah. Yep, that's me. George Knapp smuggled documents, classified, by the way, out of Russia.
I shared it with some people. It eventually found its way into the U.S. government's hands. And it tells us basically a lot of what we now know about our own government, that they have always taken this seriously. And one of the incidents, I'm sorry I made the long way around on that story, was an ICBM base in the Ukraine. Colonel Sokolov says that a giant UFO appeared over this base. These are missiles that are trained to go to New York and Los Angeles. They're very serious stuff there.
I think we know the rest of that story. And we've probably heard enough from George for our little recap on what he could bring. I think another little thing I'll just add here about George that I find really interesting, and damn it, I wish I pulled that clip up. God damn it. He recently said, George Knapp recently said that he believes the Mantids are the ones that are in control. And George Knapp has a mantis farm at his house. Like, like a giant glass aquarium with like a praying mantis colony. They're his pets. And he believes the mantids are the ones at the top of the food chain. Kind of interesting. Very interesting, actually. Especially the whole little mantid colony thing. Yes, Contra in the chat is the guy who made the epic song with the Terence McKenna samples. And he has a new song coming out very soon. So go to his link in my description if you like the music and go and show him some love. Yes, he calls it a mantis sanctuary outside. That's right. And it makes you wonder, is he trying to get some brownie points for those that are returning to wipe the slate clean? Is he like the people who say please and thank you to AI just in case the AI takes over? George Knapp's in the good books with the mantids. Who knows? Who knows? But let's get on to this guy, the wild card. The wild card. By the way, MIB with $2 says the truth will never come out. It costs money. And bro, if that is the reason, if it's something, if it's financial that is stopping all of this, then that's horrible. Like, that's sad. That's sad, bro. That's really sad. This is Dylan Boland. Now, we literally know nothing about this guy other than this. Dylan Boland worked for almost 3 years in the Air Force as a geospatial intelligence analyst, almost 4 years for BAE Systems, which is an aerospace company, as an intelligence analyst, and almost 6 years for Intrepid Solutions and Services, LLC. Now, a geospatial intelligence analyst, I believe, is the exact same role that David Grush had. Like, the exact same role, I believe. So, and I think a lot of us could say that David Grush's testimony was some of the most impactful that we've had so far. Still not firsthand, though. So I'm going to say that I don't think this guy is a firsthand witness whistleblower either. I think best bet from this guy, we could get something similar to David Grush in that through his own investigations, through things that he has seen and come across, he's perhaps learnt of specific or a group of recovery operations, reverse engineering, biologics. But I could be wrong because we really don't know anything about this guy. He could come out with some wild story that is completely off the books of his work history. Now, basically what you can see there is essentially what I just read out. I'll make it a little bit bigger just so you guys can perhaps see it a little bit more. Let me get this out of the way. So this is basically some UFO nerds pulled this off of his LinkedIn. And you can see there, nearly 6 years at Intrepid, knowledge manager, geospatial analyst and knowledge manager, Python programming language. So he's a computer nerd. No hate. I wish I could program. I actually tried and I couldn't. Well, I just didn't have the patience. All source analyst, repository manager. Okay. Organized and managed centralized database allowing for search, discovery, storage. So maybe privy to some information that's like deep in classified channels. Intelligence analyst for 3.5 years, provide full motion video and imagery analysis in support of the global war on terror. So that's 2015 to 2018. Could be some interesting things that he's seen or footage that he's captured. Geospatial intelligence analyst for the United States Air Force, 2010 to 2013. Responsible for collection, analysis, and dissemination of geospatial intelligence. So the geospatial intelligence role was for less than 3 years back in 2010 to 2013. So that's his like least current, but it may not mean least relevant if that's where we're getting some big information come from. Who knows? But I feel like it's probably more likely going to come from something recent. But I don't actually know. I really hope that more than one of these guys surprises us because, like I said, and I'm going to rank them. I'm going to give you my top 4 picks on who I think is going to be the most impactful to the least impactful. But everyone that we've just looked at there, other than Dylan, was that his name? Dylan? Yes, Dylan Boland. Other than Dylan Boland, we sort of know what they're going to bring to the table. I hope George Knapp tells us something that he's never told us before, because journalists do get told things they can't tell. Maybe he's going to surprise us. He would be the absolute king. In fact, if George Knapp comes out of the hearing with something that we've never heard, he's going to come out like this. George motherfucking Knapp. That's what I'm hoping for. I want Jeremy Corbell to be in the lobby, and instead of being angry yelling at Nancy Mace, I want to see Jeremy Corbell doing little cowboy jumps and kicks saying George motherfucking Knapp. That is the hearing we all want, and that is the hearing that we all need. 100%. So my picks. Okay, my picks. Oh, I could be so off with this. Based on what we've just looked at, okay, I'm going to be a little bit naive here, and you can see that this is going to be filled with a little bit of hope. But what else do we have, literally? I'm going to put George Knapp at number 1. Oh, no, I feel like that's going to backfire so bad. Okay, I'm going to put Dylan Boland at number 1. I'm going to go for the wild card. I'm backing the dark horse purely because as much as I want George Knapp to say something I think we don't know already, something groundbreaking, I don't think he will. And that's nothing personal. I just don't think he's that guy. I don't think he's brought to this hearing to be that guy. I hope he is, though. Believe me, I hope he is. But if I'm picking with my head and not my heart, I'm going to put Dylan Boland up the top. I'm going to put George Knapp in number 2. Come on, George. Prove me wrong. Third, I'm going Jeff Nakatelli. And in last place, I'm putting Mr. Tic Tac, Alexandro Wiggins. And that is purely because, bro, 3 years ago, we had someone come to a hearing and say, I saw a Tic Tac on radar. In fact, that guy, Fravor, saw it in person and he caught it on radar. I don't think Wiggins saw it in person. And not as close as Fravor either. So I really can't see his testimony being too impactful. However, in saying all of that, any of these guys could pull something out of their back pocket and surprise us all. And God, I hope that they do. I really, really hope that they do. I hope this hearing is nothing like the last hearing and it blows all of them out of the water. And we actually come out of it feeling like UFO disclosure has taken a step forward and not like we've all just gotten our hopes up and got our pants pulled down. I really don't want to see that. But guys, thank you for tuning in tonight. Like I said, tomorrow we're going to be looking at Philip Dick, and I'm really excited for that one because we're going to be going into some weird, wild territory. So be good, be kind, touch grass, and I'll see you tomorrow.
You're going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.